Welcome to this edition of First Strike. Dave Ross here at Circus Sportsbook in fabulous Las Vegas, breaking down Song Yadong against Chris Gutierrez in the main event here on Saturday night. Got a great crew. Lou Finocchiaro standing by, Dan Vreeland, Kuhn, and Jordan Sherwood. But before we look ahead, let's look back to what we saw at UFC Fight Night. And wow, if we did not think that Arman Tsarukyan had arrived, we know he is there now. An absolute demolition of Beneil Dariush in the very first round. Also a demolition of Jalen Turner and Bobby Green in the co-main event. But Tsarukyan moving up the ranks now at 155, potentially could have a championship bout coming up against Islam Makhachev, not that far out into the future. Let's bring in the man you can follow on X at Gamblu. He is Lou Finocchiaro, the host of the Bout Business Podcast. Lou, great to have you back on the program, my friend. Sometimes you gotta fight through. You just go do a show. You go and put your nose down in handicap fights. That's what you do. I want to get to this card here and the main event when you look at Song Yadong against Chris Gutierrez, and you can understand why I believe that Song Yadong is the favorite here. Gutierrez, kind of some indifferent performances in recent outings here, but now main events. These guys are not known to be in this role. Does being in a main event, potentially a 5-round fight, change the way you handicap it right now? Chris Gutierrez plus $3 as the big betting underdog.
Well, Dave, first of all, thank you for having me on. Love to share thoughts on my passion, the fights. In this particular fight, I would answer your question by saying, yeah, it does make a difference when one fighter doesn't have 5-round experience and one may. In this case, that's what we have. In fact, we have Song coming right off a 5-round dynamic performance finish of Ricky Simon, who I regard as a top bantamweight fighter in that class. So he comes with momentum. He's been in the main event. He's gone 5 rounds, prepared for 5 rounds. And actually, we've seen Gutierrez. I don't want to say we've seen him tire, but we've seen his output, which isn't high to begin with, wane a little bit in the later rounds. And this is a huge opportunity for him. While Song has been in with a much higher elite caliber opponent, Gutierrez is the more mature guy and maybe the less well-rounded fighter. His hands are going to be full, but the opportunity is great for him. I just think Song Yadong, though priced obtusely right now, should be a pretty firm favorite.
And we're seeing here right now 3.5 rounds juiced to the over $1.85 here. So we are expecting this one to go deep, potentially into those quote-unquote championship rounds of rounds 4 and 5, at least in this main event here. And you're right, Gutierrez may not tire, but he does wane a little bit. Do you think that Song Yadong tries to do like a Ricky Simon performance here and get him out early? Or do you think that Gutierrez can be a little bit wily as a veteran here, 6 years, the senior of Song Yadong, and try to take this into a deeper round?
Dave, if you can answer that for me, I'll go run to the window right now. But I get you. It is, to me, the question in this fight is, how is Gutierrez going to handle the championship rounds? I think Song Yadong, if he can finish Simone, he can surely finish Gutierrez. Gutierrez leg kicks will be, in effect, a jab to try and keep Yadong off of him. But I see this as chopping wood for Yadong, and I think he's going to chop the tree down sometime in 4 or 5. I like Yadong inside the distance somehow.
All right, that's to win by finish there, minus $1.10. So instead of laying that big price tag, I see exactly what Lou's doing there and knock that number down to minus $1.10 instead of playing that big price tag. In the co-main event, you've got the Lionheart back in there, Anthony Smith against Khalil Roundtree Jr. And what's interesting here is you look at Khalil, who's we know how dynamic a striker he can be. And we know Anthony Lionheart Smith normally wants to wrestle, right? So you got that contrast in styles here. Khalil's a big favorite here, minus 245. If Anthony can get that wrestling going, do you think he's live as a dog?
Anthony will be live as a dog provided he gets his ground game going. He must get this fight to the ground. And when you look at who Roundtree's fought, he hasn't really fought wrestlers that have really, even Duriev was really a guy that just trying to throw fire. I think that Roundtree, his speed, his power, and his explosion are going to be really tough for Smith to handle, especially understanding Smith did not have a camp. He's just jumping in here
Right.
in short notice. Oh, yeah, these guys stay in shape all the time. But Anthony Smith's doing podcasts, doing TV for the UFC. Meanwhile, Roundtree, a guy that struggled mentally, has seemed to have corralled some of those demons and is channeling that in a positive fashion. I think this is a tough fight for Smith. If it stays standing, I don't think Smith survives. And if it goes to the ground, I don't think Roundtree survives. The key to the fight will be, can Smith get Roundtree to the ground? And I'll be fascinated to see if that can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems to be one-way traffic. It stays standing, big advantage for Khalil Roundtree. If it gets to the ground, like you mentioned, that's where the dog would be in play here for Anthony Smith. One of my favorite nicknames on this card, and I know you've got to lean on it, and you give this out in the sneak teep. I want to talk to people about that. Tell them about it. But you got the Iron Turtle back in there against Andre Muniz. Is this one of the sneak teeps that you've already given out?
Yeah, this is a position that was discussed in the sneak teep. And what I tried to do, Dave, the sneak teep is an opening line report that I've been doing for the last couple of months, just getting an early look at where the lines move. And I tried Muniz open, he was plus 2.25. And I immediately jumped all over it. I said nothing, because I wanted that 2.25 to be around for sneak teep. And by the time it got around, it was now plus 180 on the Muniz side. Yes, I'm all about Muniz here. His credibility and value is down as it can be after he fought two world-class grapplers in Allen and Craig. And now he gets a guy that comes in. And I don't want to take anything from the Turtle. He's got a winning UFC record. He's won his last 4 fights. But yeah, and I mentioned Duriev earlier. The Turtle's the guy that fought Duriev. Duriev is a striker and doesn't really try and wrestle. Tuilen, Holmes, Anders. Muniz has beaten Anders as well. Muniz's size, the fact that he's desperate and fighting for his job, I just think, I don't want to say the wrong man's favorite, but I said at the time that this fight goes off with the Turtle maybe minus 140, minus 145. I think Muniz is all kinds of live here. I've already released him at a high price. Any dog price at $150 or better on Muniz, I would try and gobble up now.
And I think the price will come down after they watch that again. And if they've checked out your sneak teep, they got a much better number than you're going to get now. Andre Muniz now down to plus $1.50. I know you've got another lead on Kevin Jousset against Kenan Song. Song right now plus $1.20. Kevin, a small favorite here, minus $1.40. What's the sneak that you have on this one?
Yeah, my angle here is Song, the different Song, Kenan. Relatively inconsistent. But he's got the experience factor. He's been in with good fighters, and he showed all of us a lot in his fight against Ian Gary. And so when he's got it going, he's a striker and he's got some power in his hands. The issue is he can be dynamically inconsistent. Now he draws a guy that's going to be a couple of 2-3 inches taller than him. He's a Frenchman fighting out of city kickboxing. The key to Jousset is the fact that he's a grappler, and so he's not going to want to spend too much time standing with Song. He's going to want to get this thing into the slow dance, then against the fence, then on the ground for advantage. And I think he's going to be able to find his way in doing that. It's going to take a while. This is going to be a tight fight because Song has plenty of experience and heart. But I do like the debuting fighter who, oh, by the way, opened at 170 and now is looking closer to the 140. I don't know if I'd take him yet. It's still dropping, but I'm monitoring that very, very closely because when it gets to its lowest point and ticks a penny up, that's when I'll jump on Jousset.
Would you look at Jousset via decision here, Lou, knowing that it's going to take some time here to get Song Kenan down to the ground and eventually utilize that grappling? Because if you like that, you can get right now it's plus $1.40 here on Jousset if you like that side.
Yeah, I'm going to play it safe. You know, I never like a negative side. So is Jousset potentially a parlay piece? Yes, because I just like to put a unit out.
Yep.
But I'm not going to get too cute with him He is the guy that's giving away experience and UFC experience. So I'll be diligent, but I do like Giuseppe based on the fact that that price is coming down. Now, that's because the market likes Song and they
Right.
believe his experience means something. So you're going to have to weigh that as you will.
And by the way, you said, I misspoke, he's plus 250 to win via decision if you think it's going to hit the cards there. But I'm definitely picking up what you're putting down. We've got about 60 seconds to go. Tell the people about the Bout Business podcast each and every week, Lou, and what they get when they listen in.
The Bout Business podcast breaks each week. There's a UFC card right after the weigh-ins occur. I wait that long to make sure that I have all the data I need to feel good about releasing. Everything I bet, I release. It's on the podcast. It drops every Friday. There's a UFC card. And Dave, thanks so much for letting me be on. I can't wait to watch the other three cappers today with their input. And good luck to everybody at the fights.
Absolutely, Lou. I think one of the best things that you do, and this is why you should follow him at Gamblue as I do, when those weigh-ins come out on Friday, Lou, you're always all over those and give us the live updates as you see what's happening with those fighters as they try to make weight. Lou, appreciate you as always, my friend. When we come back, we're shipping up to Boston to catch up with Dan Vreeland. He is coming up next here on First Strike on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber today. Get a daily email recapping all the best bets from our show hosts and guests. You're going to get unlimited access to our VSiN.com/picks page. Sort those picks out by sport, matchup, event date, and more. Check the top VSiN experts leaderboard to view betting records, profit, ROI. See which VSiN expert has the current hot hand. So from VSiN Pro picks, betting splits, power ratings, plus 24/7 video access. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber today. Sign up now for just $9.99 at VSiN.com/subscribe. We're shipping up to Boston to catch up with our guy, Gumby Vreeland. That's how you follow him, as I do on X. Dan Vreeland, of course. He's a writer at Gambling Podcast, Cage Side Press, host of Top Turtle MMA, SGPN MMA Pod. He's all over the platform, people. And it's great to have him back. Dan, I got to ask you something. Now, you're not as old as I am, but I am a diehard Metropolitan fan. And when the Mets beat the Red Sox in '86, you might not even have been born yet.
I was not.
You were not even born yet. Like, we Mets fans, we like you guys. Why do you hate the Mets?
I mean, you got to remember big money spending. I don't love, especially in like old washed up Red Sox like Mo Vaughn, Pedro Martinez. You guys just take, you can take Jason Bay too. Like just watching anybody who you like kind of love to watch in Boston go somewhere else to die a sad death is enough to taint your taste.
Yeah, we had the Mo Vaughn experience at the end of his days in New York as well. But at least we have the Cowboys in common, so that's a good thing. Dan, you know what I'm going to ask you. I ask you each and every week, and I love the answers here. The fight you can't wait to wager on, and the fight you can't wait to watch.
So I can't wait to watch Tim Elliott stepping in on short notice to fight Sumudaerji. Yeah. I thought it was a fun fight with Alan Nascimento versus Sumudaerji, but like Mudaerji's never in a dull fight. You know, that fight he had with Matt Schnell, super exciting. And then you're going to put him in there with an absolute scramble monster in Tim Elliott. I think that fight could go either way. Haven't seen the lines on it yet, so I think the line could potentially be really interesting, especially with the short notice aspect in there. But bottom line is I'm just going to enjoy watching it.
By the way, very quickly, Dan, it is right now Sumudaerji's plus $1.50 against Tim Elliott minus $1.80. I know. Feels a little steep on the Elliott side. I mean, I think we all respect the grappling and how these exchanges could go. But you're right. That was fight of the decade, potentially, Sumudaerji. Unbelievable fight here. Are you tempted at the plus price tag there of Sumudaerji?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I thought this was going to be a pick'em or even Tim Elliott as a slight dog. And I might have been interested in Tim Elliott as a slight dog. But like Sumudaerji was doing fine with the grappling of Matt Schnell, who I think is, probably right on par with Tim Elliott. So if you're telling me I'm getting 1.5 on Sumudaerji, I think you got to pull the trigger on that one. And it's a card. I don't love a lot of dogs in this card. So even more reason for me to like Mudaerji here.
All right, so the fight that you can't wait to watch is that fight. But the fight you can't wait to wager on where you think you still have a good number, what do you like?
Ryan Dos Santos is a fighter who I've had my eye on since she was on Contender Series. I kind of wrote her off after her Contender Series fight, but she fought it all the way up at flyweight, and now she's fighting. She actually fought at atomweight shortly thereafter that, won the Invicta title at atomweight. Obviously, the UFC doesn't have atomweight, so we see her now in between at strawweight. I think she finds a good spot here because she's fighting Talia Alankar, who was on the Contender Series as well, wound up in a draw. But really the big sell on her and why she didn't earn a contract right off the bat was that outside of her grappling, she doesn't seem to have anything that she can offer most strawweights in the UFC. So I think with Dos Santos, somebody who has kind of dealt with grappling of better fighters even than Talita Alankar, I think she's just going to piece her up on the feet. And the fact that the line has stayed as close as it is makes it really tempting on Dos Santos here.
All right, so right now, minus $1.66 for Dos Santos, the very first fight of the night. I think you know by now how compelled I am to watch Tetsuro Taira every time he gets in the octagon. Another big favorite here against Carlos Hernandez. The problem for me is I don't know which way Taira's going to get the finish, whether it's going to be a sub or a ground and pound here. What do you make of Taira in this spot? Is the number too big here at almost $6?
I mean, it's too big to do anything except for like throwing a parlay and try to juice up your numbers a little bit because, like that number is really big and it's probably only going to get bigger come fight time. Like if you're hearing this on Tuesday, good for you. You can probably get it as low as it'll ever be because it'll probably be, 700 by the time we get to fight time. What I do think is kind of intriguing about this fight is I think Carlos Hernandez is tough. And I think you can almost make money off of the fact that he is really tough and he is sometimes hard to put away. And Taira, not that he has been particularly bad at putting people away, but there have been times where he's just been comfortable dominating a little bit here and there. And I think that this is a spot where if you look for the overs, I think you're going to find probably some money, even some value on over 1.5, because people think he's going to get it done here in the first, most likely. And so I think if you look for the over on 1.5, or maybe even you just look for a finish prop in the second or in the third, that way you don't have to pick the particular, like the sub or the KO. I think you're going to wind up with a little bit better of a ways to play this one.
Yeah, there's no way, like you said, I'm not going to get interested in laying 535 as it's starting to balloon now, even from 520 at the beginning of the show. So it's already going up. Let's stay on the undercard here with Luana Santos against Stephanie Egger. We know how tough Egger can be, but Santos right now at minus $1.55. Any value on the dog here? I know you're kind of leaning towards some favorites this week.
Yeah, you actually found one of the few other dogs that I actually like on this one. I like Stephanie Egger. Luana Santos, I think her number is mostly baked into the fact that she beat the crap out of Juliana Miller. And I feel like we talked about this last week. I'm not all that impressed with people who beat up Juliana Miller. It's not a selling point for me. And she knocked her out. She knocked her out quick, so props to her there. But I've seen some of her fights in the past, her fights back when she was in LFA on the regional scene. And as the fight goes deeper and deeper and deeper, she actually has a little bit of trouble with her gas tank. She looked really tired in the second round of that Jenna Bishop fight, a fight she wound up losing by split decision. And Jenna Bishop is kind of a grinder, somebody who likes to wrestle. We've seen her in Bellator. I don't think Stephanie Egger is quite the grappler that she is. We've seen her have some kind of spotty submission defense, but I think it's better than a lot of the people who Luana Santos has fought. Luana Santos has used a lot of those key locks from scarf hold to submit her opponents. I don't think that's something she's going to catch Stephanie Egger in, and it's a position that could potentially give up your back in a lot of positions. So if Stephanie Egger scrambles well, she makes Luana Santos work, I think we could see her start to gain advantages in the second and the third round here. I don't know that she puts her away, but she might do enough where she can win the second and third and steal this one on the judges' scorecards. We
were supposed to get Stevie Garcia against Melky Costa last week. We're going to get Garcia and Costa this week. And we're seeing that Melky is a wild man. We know that. Big favorite here, almost a $3 betting favorite. You leaning towards the fave here?
I think you have to, because first of all, I was already leaning to him because I don't know that Steve Garcia can take him down enough to win the fight, via decision that way. I don't think anybody can knock out most of those guys from shoot to box too. So that really eliminates just about every, path to victory there for Steve Garcia. And, just the pace and pressure and all that Melky Costa brings is just really impressive. I loved him on short notice in his debut against Thiago Moises. He looked great in that fight despite losing. So I don't think Steve Garcia poses any real threat to him. You also have to obviously handicap the fact that Steve Garcia is the one who pulled out of a fight last week after or leading into weigh-ins. You have to imagine that it was weigh-in related, because if it was more significant than being weigh-in related, would he be fighting a week later? No, it was probably a botched weight cut. He wasn't sweating the weight out correctly. He wasn't, holding water the way he was supposed. Like, there was something wrong with his weight cut. Now we're going to bounce back a week, and granted, he's going to go up a weight class, so he has to cut less. but you're going to put him through that process again, right? Because he's not coming in straight at 155. He's not cutting no weight anymore. He's going to have to cut a little bit more again, and you have to wonder what that does for his cardio. And having a cardio problem against a shoot the box guy, it doesn't get much worse than that. Like, that's the worst game plan ever.
Nasrat Haqparast is about a $2 betting favorite right now against Jamie Mullarkey, the Australian here. Jamie right now plus $1.70. Leaning again towards Haqparast here. We know Mullarkey, he likes to stand and trade. Sometimes it doesn't always work out to his advantage.
Man, it sounds like we did pre-production on this because you cherry-picked every single dog I like on this card. Just spoiler alert, take pretty much favorites on almost every single other fight. I got one more dog I like too. But Jamie Mullarkey is an underdog I like here because he's turned into a guy who's put together a really great game plan. People have had problems with his chin in the past, and I understand that, right? He's obviously had some issues with getting knocked out. He got knocked out by a newcomer not that long ago, and man, does that throw off warning lights. But now Haqparast has had an 11-fight UFC career, and he's got one knockout. And that knockout happened 5 years ago at Fight Night, headlined by Robbie Lawler. So if that's the last time we've seen Nasrat Haqparast knock somebody out, I don't worry about him as a knockout threat against Jamie Mullarkey, especially this like new safe version of Jamie Mullarkey, right? Like we've seen him do kind of the smart game plan and stay away from the big bombs and now he's also being more active, and I think that's better for him, right? He's fought 4 times in this calendar year. That is an incredible thing for him because before he was like 1 or 2 a year ever. So the fact that he's getting out there more, the fact that he's getting an opportunity to fight a little bit more, I think is going to bode well for him. We're going to see a good game plan here.
Only have about a minute to go. Main event, I got to ask you, Chris Gutierrez, big underdog here. Is that the last dog that you actually like at plus $3, or do you think it's all one-way traffic with Song Yadong?
This is the last one I like. I will say I love the number here more than I like the talent. While I love Chris Gutierrez, if you told me gun to my head, had to pick a winner here, you're going Song Yadong, right? You don't go against a negative 350 favorite if it was a pick 'em. But with that being said, I think Chris Gutierrez is being wildly undervalued. Plus 300 for a guy who rips the legs as much as he does. He can hurt somebody and make a 5-round fight really difficult, despite the fact he hasn't fought very many 5-round fights. Song Yadong also sits down on his punches. He is a target for a guy who can land a whole bunch of leg kicks. Gutierrez might be the worst thing for him, but at the bottom line is plus 300 is just too much value on Gutierrez to pass up.
Yep, dog or pass is what it feels like there with Gutierrez. Dan, always appreciate the time, my friend. We'll catch up with you again next week. Going to go to Washington, D.C. next. Catch up with Reed Kuhn. Come on back for a strike right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. College Bowl season is upon us, and VSiN has an early Christmas present for you. Not a VSiN Pro subscriber yet? Well, no problem. We're giving away this year's College Bowl betting guide to everybody. We've got spreads, totals, expert picks from the Golics, Steve Mackinnon, Brent Musburger for every single bowl game. So put a bow in this bowl season. Get a free copy of your VSiN College Football Bowl betting guide absolutely free. Visit VSiN.com/bowl guide and get your free copy today. How about that? Let's go to Washington, D.C., catch up with our guy, Reed Kuhn. You can follow him as I do on X at Fightnomics. Reed, great to have you back on the program, my friend. Got to ask you very quickly, just your thoughts of what you saw last week with the models, because I'm looking at Sarukian, and I did not see him running through a guy like Beneil Dariush. What'd you make of that main event?
Yeah, it was a dominant victory, and it was one of those things where I'm seeing a high price tag, but the model's coming in so strong that I was still doubling down on that. So that was something I don't always see. So I got to know that there was something in that data that really favored one guy over the other. And I was talking with Dean Thomas about it, actually, and he pointed out, he said, listen, Beneil's had a great run, but he may be over that hump. You know, that run may be over, whereas Sarukian is still getting better. He's younger. He's still on the up. So it was just two guys going different directions that met in the main event. So I was happy with the outcome. Sarukian's definitely a force to be reckoned with.
And see, that's why I brought that up, because your data, sometimes people get scared away when they see these big favorites. They go, oh, my goodness, I don't want to lay this much. And you're saying, well, there still was value in Sarukian's side. You look at the main event here with Song Yadong, a massive favorite against Chris Gutierrez. And again, I think the natural proclivity sometimes is say dog or pass, because Goots is plus $3. But what are the models showing you with Song Yadong? Again, 6 years the junior, and I know the models really take that type of thing into account.
Yeah, this is one where we're not seeing as much value in the current price. It is a steep price to pay for Song. Gutierrez has arguably crisper hands when it comes to just the metrics, offensively, defensively. He doesn't get hit very much. He has very good accuracy. His power rating is technically higher. And this is a fight that should take place mostly on the feet. And when you look at all those things, and I'm looking at this steep price for Song, I'm wondering, maybe this is a stab at Gutierrez, but I think when I go a little bit deeper at the resume, I am way more impressed by the resume of Yadong Song. And so that gives me a little bit more motivation to say, all right, he's still worth a parlay or something like that. But at money line prices, I am probably going to pass on this one just based on the metrics.
You know, Reed, and I don't know if the models have shown anything here, but you know all these rates for KOs and the like. If the fight does stay standing, we're seeing right now 3.5 rounds is where this is priced, juiced heavily right now, about minus $1.85 to the over. If it does stay standing, do you see finishing potential here from, certainly on the Yadong side, would be the one that kind of takes center stage?
Yeah, think of it at baseline. About half of fights will end inside the distance, and the majority of those that finish inside the distance are going to be striking finishes. So in terms, if you were just flipping a coin between two random fighters in the UFC, you would say in a 5-round fight, juice to the over makes probably, it's roughly accurate here. Combine that with two guys with very good offensive metrics, but also very good defensive metrics. Neither one of these guys has really been exploited on the feet and striking. And so if they get into a stand-up duel, it's hard to know if someone's really going to go down that easy. I might set the bar a little lower, like 1.5. And go over that way. You know, Song over 1.5, you know, a single game parlay type of situation, that might be the way to go here. But it's defensively, they haven't really been damaged. And that's what makes me think they're going to put up a good fight. No one's going to go down easy.
Very fascinating there. By the way, Yadong, if you like him by KO, TK, or DQ, it's plus $1.20. To win by finish just inside the distance there, minus $1.10. So some different numbers there if you don't want to weigh those big price tags that you were alluding to, Reed. But another one that's a big favorite here is a guy that I'm always intrigued to watch now, the young sensation out of Japan, Tatsuro Taira, and another massive favorite, one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one right now on the card, over a $5 betting favorite. What are the numbers showing you with Tatsuro Taira? Because again, while dynamic, sometimes seems like he struggles to get guys out of there.
Yeah, but that won't really matter. I mean, he's definitely on a path to victory here. This is some of the most dominant wrestling metrics I've seen lately. So, you know, throwback to Sarukian, another situation, very steep price, but this time we are justifying it with the data because Hernandez has average takedown defense at best. And so Taira is eventually going to get this to the floor. I see it helps that he's a little bit bigger and ranger at least, and younger as well. Mm-hmm. You know, so he shouldn't fade very quickly. He's very young. So it's the dominant wrestling. This is very dominant wrestling. These metrics don't normally see that type of attack. He's attempting takedowns at a furious pace. He doesn't spend more than like 45, 50 seconds at a distance with anybody before attempting at least one takedown. So you got to think he's going to get it down quick. And Hernandez doesn't really show the ground control to stand up to that. So, yeah, Taira is probably one of your parlay anchors for everything. I would be shocked if he took any risks on the feet. I think he gets it to the floor early, and maybe he gets a finish because his submissions also come at a furious rate.
So maybe even look for Taira inside the distance there instead of laying that 535, the second biggest favorite on the card. But I love that the data points say that he should be that big a favorite. Let's get to some dogs potentially that you like that the data is showing that could be live. And one of them right now that feels like it's an interesting price point because it's dropped a lot is Andre Muniz against the Iron Turtle here. And Park right now, the number has come down as the week's gone on. Why is the data pointing to the Andre side here that maybe here at plus money he's still valuable?
Yeah, I see these guys matching up very evenly on the feet. Give or take, Muniz is actually a lot bigger, which helps him in this matchup because his defense is also good. So it just tells me that for every given exchange, it's probably going to be Muniz either not taking much damage or at least landing some of his own with that extra range. And so then we got to go to the ground game. Well, it's actually Muniz that is more likely to initiate takedowns. They have equivalent ground control time. I mean, maybe Park has a little bit better because he hasn't faced a lot of wrestlers. But yeah, I'm seeing enough on the side of Muniz that says this is a very close matchup. I'm disappointed the price has come down, or the return has come down. It's one of those situations that, I got to sit here and bite my nails until weigh-ins before I really pull. But yeah, I do see upset potential, and I don't expect the price to change as much where I would lose a bet here. I think eventually I will be pulling on Muniz.
Right now, it's still plus $1.50, but you're right. That was over $2 not that long ago. So some money certainly has come in on the Andre side here. Another fighter that's always intriguing is Jamie Malarkey, and sometimes you don't want to play him as a big favorite, and now you get him as an underdog here. I'm seeing plus $1.70 right now against Nasrat Haqparast. Haqparast is, we're seeing him just over $2 betting favorite here at 205. Why is the data leaning possibly to the Australian?
Yeah, Malarkey's a tricky guy, and there is he is top of mind for me because I was analyzing him quite a bit for the last matchup where Makdessi arguably got the better of him on the feet, and hopefully Malarkey learned from that fight. He had a very close split decision, or a close decision, with Makdessi back in his home country. Malarkey's out in open water now. The judges hopefully are calling it the way it is.
I think we just lost Reed, so we'll have to try to get his connection back if we can. But yeah, the data points are proving right now that Malarkey at plus $1.70, there could be some real value there against this fight against Nasrat Haqparast. And again, we talked about this a little while ago, and I thought Dan Vreeland did a great job of breaking this down. Really not a power guy here with Haqparast, so if he can't get the fight down to the ground and it does stay on the feet, that's where Malarkey could really be live. And I believe, Reed, we have your connection back. But again, the data points are showing that Malarkey is live here at plus $1.70, correct?
Yeah, I do think it is closer than what the prices imply. I think Malarkey hopefully learned from that last fight with Makdessi and takes it to the ground sooner. He does have a grappling advantage. He has shown good ground control when he uses it. And so that's, I think, a situation where that could help him against Nasrat, because Nasrat actually has very crisp-looking hands and has scored a lot more knockdowns. So if Malarkey is smart, I think he gets it down. He gets it down earlier.
All right, got 90 seconds to go here. Speaking of styles that make fights, we know that the Lionheart wants to get the fight down to the ground. We know Khalil Rountree wanted to keep this fight standing in that distance here. If Smith gets those takedowns, you got to think he's live, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Khalil Rountree has never actually landed a takedown in his entire UFC career, over 107 minutes of cage time. So he doesn't want to go there, especially with Anthony Smith. And Anthony Smith is one of those guys, if he can weather the early storm, he's got that Lionheart spirit. He comes back late. He wraps you up. He maybe gets a submission at the end. And so that's the scenario. That's the scenario I'm hoping for if I'm going to be backing the dog here. But he has to survive early because Khalil Rountree hits like a truck. His knockdown rate is arguably the best on this entire card. So Anthony Smith needs to be on his toes, avoid that damage, get it down early. That's where I like him for the upset.
So very quickly here, correlated play, right? It would be Smith in the over if you're looking at it, Rountree in the under.
Yeah, and either way, there's a lot of finishing potential on both sides here. So fight does not go the distance might be a safe parlay anchor to combine with a Terra or maybe a Yadong Song.
We'll absolutely love it. There he is. Everybody give him a follow on X at Fightnomics, the one and only Reed Kuhn. When we come back, we're going to Chicago to catch up with Jordan Sherwood. That is next. First Strike here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We roll on this edition of First Strike and go to Chicago to catch up with our guy, Jordan Sherwood. You can follow him on X as I do at Wood on ESPN 1000. And Jordan, I will say that our producer extraordinaire, Britton, has pointed out, you do have kind of a Clark Kent looking vibe going today with the window and the city behind you. You don't do that you don't put on a cape and save lives, do you?
No, I don't save lives, and I definitely don't put on a cape. If you see some of my picks at times, whether it's the NFL or mixed martial arts, But I appreciate the compliment, and of course, I got sweetness in the background.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Greatest running back of all time right there, Walter Payton, everybody. All right, let's get to this card here, Jordan. Get your thoughts on this. And again, the main event, got some interesting viewpoints here from our panel of guests today. Song Yadong, obviously a massive favorite against Goots here, and Chris Gutierrez. Gutierrez plus $3. Again, looking at the price points too, even on the total at 3.5, juiced heavily to the over, minus $1.85. Is this a quicker fight, or is this a fight that you think Gutierrez can extend against Song Yadong?
I think he can extend this fight because he's going to come out and look to establish kind of a distance and also to establish those leg kicks that he's very well known for. And he's going to look to counter strike. So he's going to maybe ask, Song Yadong to lead the dance. And that's right up Yadong's alley because I feel like Yadong has are in his face. Corey Sandhagen comes to mind, the controversial fight with Marlon Vera, guy that's could be a pressure fighter at times as well. So I think this is an ideal stylistic matchup for Song Yadong, not having to worry about the takedowns. But I also believe that, look, we saw Song Yadong go 5 hard rounds and then stop Ricky Simone his last time out. He went 4 hard rounds and it was a bludgeoning, but he did go 4 rounds with Corey Sandhagen. So I think Song Yadong is extremely comfortable taking this into deep waters, and I think that actually has to be the play. I think you have to get cute with the odds and maybe take Song Yadong to win the fight round 3 to start to add a little bit more value because I'm not confident, Dave, either way if Yadong's going to get the finish or he's going to be successful on the judges' scorecard. So I'd be more confident in playing a little bit to the round and winner prop, and I obviously do believe Yadong's going to win the fight.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me, too, because, again, Yadong's got 5-round experience, main event experience, where Gutierrez really does not. So very interesting if he's never really go to those waters. If he does take it there, what would he have left, arguably, in those championship rounds in 4 and 5? But I'm with you on the Yadong side. This is interesting because the Iron Turtle here, the number has come down as the week has gone on against Andre Muniz here. And right now I'm seeing Park at about, minus $1.80 here with Muniz plus $1.50. What do you make of this line move that a lot of money coming in on Andre?
Yeah, and look, I get it. I mean, look, outside of his 2-fight losing streak, the guy is a wizard on the ground. Mm-hmm. He looked like he was certainly going to be a threat, in the middleweight division, and with his ability to get those submissions kind of out of nowhere. And plus the fact, too, even though I love the Iron Turtle, I've cashed a lot of times on him, and his pressure game, his top game is very good. He has been submitted. We've seen.
Okay, I think we lost Jordan there. Maybe
not as well. Am I still here?
Yeah, now we got you back, Jordan.
Okay. So what I was saying is, look, we've seen Andre Muniz. We know what he can do from the submission game, and the Iron Turtle has been submitted before. But of late, I think that we've seen the best that we're going to see out of Muniz, and we've seen when pressure gets to him, top game gets to him. I favor the Iron Turtle in that standpoint. So I love the fact that Iron Turtle was, 225, 220 earlier in the week. Now he's down to $1.80. I get the risks that the Iron Turtle is going to face, considering he's going to probably want to put Muniz on his back, and he's very comfortable there. But if this price continues to tweak down to $1.50, I'm all in on the Iron Turtle. I like his game. I think he's got enough of the pressure game, the top game, to get Andre out of there.
And again, so you're going to wait is what I'm picking up, right? You're just going to keep waiting on Park for this number to come down, because if you think there's more Muniz money to come in, maybe get this price point down to where you're looking at about $1.50 is what you're aiming for.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. So I don't disrespect people. I know there's a fellow colleagues of mine on this show that have picked Muniz, think he's going to win, and jumped at the price early on. But I'm going to wait and see, and hopefully Park continues to trend down, and that's a guy that I'm going to play late, because, again, I've seen a lot of success from him throughout his career.
One guy that I think we're all in unison on is Tetsuro Taira, and he is a dynamo here, and somebody – you're not going to see him on the undercards very often here, the second fight of the night, but that's where he finds himself here against Carlos Hernandez, and Taira is the second biggest betting favorite here at minus 535. The number feels like it's going up. What do you make of Taira, and is there a better way to play it than obviously laying over a $5 price tag?
Yeah, I mean, look, the $5 price tag, even a parlay, too risky for me. And I understand why the value's coming in. I mean, ESPN just had a list of their potential future champions, and he was listed as one of them at flyweight. And that's because you're right. He's a dynamo. He's well-versed. He's explosive. He's long for the division, and he's got great submissions. And we saw Carlos Hernandez succumb to a Nascimento submission 2 fights ago. So we know he struggles with those longer guys that are going to look to take him. So for me, it's Tyra via submission if you can get it. Maybe even, Tyra via submission rounds 1 or 2 to even add a little bit of further value to that. But I think, Tyra, this is a showcase fight because you got to remember, this fight card was supposed to be in China. So it's supposed to feature a lot of these, Pacific, fighters. Certainly, it's a risk that they have to change up their travel, come overseas, and fight in Vegas. But there's a couple of these fights that were showcase fight for fighters, and I certainly believe Tyra is going to be one of them.
And Jordan, very quickly, you mentioned that maybe the round prop. You'd look for Tyra via sub. Is that what you look at for rounds 1 and 2?
Via sub in round 1 or via sub in round 2. I think, he's going to come out explosive, look to get Hernandez very quickly out of there, establish himself as a true fighter contender at flyweight.
Yeah, it feels like he is the next right now, possibly at that division at 125 pounds. Let's talk about Tim Elliott, because this is a guy that we know can have absolutely wild exchanges on the ground. And against Sumajiri, this is interesting here. Elliott right now is a minus $1.80. Sumajiri is plus $1.50. We saw Majiri in one of the best fights you're ever going to see here in defeat. What do you make of Elliott now here at minus $1.80?
Yeah, I shake my head because I was on Sumajiri and then Danger Snell spoiled that party.
How did that happen?
And look, I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And Sumajiri, look, he thumps. He's got power. And actually, even though he was, I think a little bit disrespected in the line against Nascimento, I was going to probably play Sumajiri. I'm probably going to play Tim Elliott now. Tim Elliott looking to bounce back. He had a win that was tucked in his back pocket, and then he succumbs to a submission late in the 3rd round, his last fight out. But the way that he scrambles and his pressure game, the fact he just keeps coming after you, and his ability to get those scrambles, I think is going to, war Sumajiri out. Plus the fact, too, Tim Elliott has got a pretty good chin, and I know he's getting up there in age, and it's probably surprising, even though he doesn't have to do it. This is not a flyweight fight. It's a fight that's being a catchweight fight, so good for him. He doesn't have to make that drastic weight cut to make the weight taking this fight on 5 days' notice. But he's a difficult guy to prepare for. His scrambles are going to be difficult. So I like a little bit of a flyer, if you will, on Tim Elliott taking this fight on short notice to spoil Sumajiri.
That's interesting that you mentioned that Elliott had a fight that he feels like he should have won until he got caught late. Sumajiri, I don't know how many times. I think I went back and counted. I thought he had matched Snell out 5 different times.
Yeah, 5 different times.
I mean, it's insane.
In a span of like 30 seconds. It was crazy. And look, but here's the thing, too. Like, who has Sumajiri lost to? He lost to guys that were crazy scramblers, Luis Smolka and Matt Snell. Tim Elliott is a crazy scrambler. Doesn't have, obviously, the length that those two guys might have, but I like Tim Elliott coming in here, short notice, spoiling Sumajiri, which is unfortunate because I'm big on Sumajiri. I wanted to cash on him and Snell, and I was going to look to play him, as I mentioned, against Nascimento.
All right, so that should be another wild exchange coming here between Sumajiri and Tim Elliott. I do want to ask you very quickly about the co-main event here because it's a stylistic matchup when you look at Lionheart Smith against Khalil Roundtree Jr. We know Khalil wants to stand, use leg kicks and strike and keep this fight on the outside. Anthony Smith has got to shorten that distance and try to get the fight down to the ground. Have you handicapped either way that because if Smith can't get this fight down to the ground, he doesn't have a real good puncher's chance of punching with Khalil Roundtree, correct?
Yeah, I don't want to stand and trade with Khalil Roundtree. No. That dude's just one of the scariest guys to look at. I mean, he just stands there stoic. Didn't this line flip? I think if I recall. So I don't know where Anthony Smith is. I don't know if he's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean, I've felt that way since he had that home invasion incident way back when, and then lost to Glover Teixeira in the 5th round of what was essentially a title eliminator. But then he bounces back and looks great in a couple of fights. So I'll say this: I think we're getting a finish in this fight. I do believe, even though Smith has gone, I think, to the judges' scorecards 2 of the last 3 times. They were getting a finish, but I'm not going to play either side because it's too big of a risk for Roundtree at 245. But I just don't know what kind of fighter Smith is or what he has left. But he's savvy enough to spoil Khalil Roundtree on short notice. So I'll just sit back, relax, enjoy it, but play the under on this one.
There he is, everybody. The Clark Kent of Chicago, Jordan Sherwood. Appreciate you as always, my friend. Want to thank all of our guests for joining us today. And, of course, Rob Moreno, Britton Hess doing a great job behind the glass. Cash some tickets. We'll see you next week right here, First Strike on VSiN.